Oh, that button.
Okay, so yeah, if the bell is ringing and working there, then it's
Got
there.
it. Yeah.
Happy to visit your cozy abode.
It's all told in the first person narrative, so we've all got a little narrative that we tell.
That should be in focus for this part.
Cool.
We do the most talking.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay.
Okay, is it going? Okay, this is the story of Bizu and Oluglu. It is based on the oral folktale that preceded the first literary version of the Red Riding Hood, and it was told in the 16th century French countryside. So this is loosely inspired by that time in history and by the origins of the forgotten origins of fairy tales, which are full of dark themes and not really for children. And so trigger warning, this has some dark and disturbing content. Feel free to leave if at any point it gets to be too much. It's mostly pretty abstract. And yeah, I really was drawn to this folktale because she's not Little Red Riding Hood yet. That was added by Perrault in the 16th century. The female protagonist is this badass trickster character that outsmarts the wolf by performing a striptease, and there's all this scatological stuff, and it doesn't shy away from the original themes of the story. And I was thinking a lot about, feminist ideas about embodiment, and it's just, I've always been really into fairy tales, and this is sort of what came out. So, this is Puppet Cat, this is Bizu, I'm Sylvie, this is Lissy, and this is Perrette, who we may or may not get to. Okay. Start.
I take my seat atop the ducking stool to watch this piece of grim theater from long ago. As I stretch out, I find myself wishing that I could feel these wooden limbs warming pleasantly in the sun, but I'll settle for what I have. These two pebble eyes imbued by the old hag with the gift of sight. I fix my gaze on the spectacle below me. It is a warm, bright day, and the woman's sallow skin is translucent, lit up a pale orange by the afternoon sun. I follow her for miles through the rough shrubs of these winding paths, but she was too hungry and delirious to take notice of me, and when she did, she showed little interest. I, strange as I might be to most, didn't stand out among her carnival of hungry visions. Now she is bound to a metal chair that hovers over the edge of a riverbank. Her hair and eyebrows are shaven. Raw, red welts wrap around her naked limbs, and her face is stony, stoic, and expressionless. An iron bar is fastened across her lap, keeping her in place. The chair is fastened to a long wooden beam, fixed as a seesaw. A group of men are gathering behind her. The tall one begins to unfasten the ropes, tilting the beam and lowering her into the water. A small crowd gathers to watch, children tugging excitedly at their mother's skirts and beg to clamber atop their father's shoulders. The tall man's voice booms. She will be submerged underwater several times, then expelled from the city. There is a smattering of fervent applause. Then a woman's shrill voice rises up above the rest, screeching, "Whore!" I lick my paws. I am comfortable, poised as the seesaw totters. I keep my place on the wooden beam each time it is tipped. They untie the ropes and I rise up. She is lowered. As she rises up, I tilt back slightly, but I do not budge. They barely notice me, but I'm not frightened, even if they do snatch me up and try to drown me along with her. I've spent years molding in a pond, inert and decaying, a senseless wooden doll overtaken by mildew and rot. I am not afraid of water, as is typical of my kind, since I know that I will just float away. The first time that she's lowered, she doesn't scream. The second time she emerges, she is screaming and gasping desperately. By the third, she is mute and barely breathing. They submerge her 6 times, then unfasten the metal bar and topple her, unconscious, into the grass. The crowd recedes. When the last of them leaves, I saunter up to her and lick the pond water from her face with my coarse tongue. My companion's disgraced body holds the marks of an exile, and we will wander together into the woods, further and further away from her village, from her mother and her sisters. I will follow at her heels until I grow tired of it. Her familiar, they speculate. Ha! What a pair we make, the two of us. I with my strange mechanical gait and my painted face, and she too a strange specimen. slick and hairless as a rat, barely recognizable as a female of her species, save for the growing bulge in her belly. She wonders if the baby will live. I will abandon her somewhere along the pine-lined path, and she will give birth alone, in the woods, squatting like an animal.
Last night I dreamt an odor. At first no images, just a seeping blackness and the metallic scent of blood. The animal smell of dung and death far surpassed the familiar stench of human filth that we were acclimated to, that lived on us poor. Our haggard bodies could not smell themselves wasting. But then I could see their ribs twist through their matted fur, their wasted muscles shifting and contorting absurdly as they prowl. This swirling, riotous mass is all desperate sexual energy, the kind born of rage, hunger dulling anger and appetite into delirium. I smell her before I see her, as if I were near her, my eldest sister. The acrid scent of sheep wool that clings to her hands and clothes, the smell of lye and vinegar. She is a tall, featureless silhouette in a red and white cloak. This is the garment that marks her. There are only flashing fragments of her figure through the whipping tree branches. The wolfmen are driven to frenzy by the coming storm, the changing air pressure. She was walking on her own, looking for another who was also on his own, one that wanted a more long-term companion, perhaps. She pretends to disregard them and begins to move deeper into the forest, hoping to take shelter from the rain where the canopy is thicker, but they stalk after her in their strange way. My gaze follows too, disembodied, moves with her closer to the heart of the forest. For a while I remember that she stayed with one of these beasts, washed his clothes in the river, told him stories, and kissed him at night with a passion that felt real, like a lover's. Maybe hunger and exile made her feel it, made it real. The crafts wouldn't have an old widow and her 3 young daughters, so we continued to toil for a pittance. It was only because of her that we never starved. The land I am looking at I haven't known. It is far away, deeper in the countryside than I have ever been. I am still a girl and haven't ever been permitted to go past the outskirts of the town in which we live. She is looking for the soldier that she used to stay with before she was expelled from the city, before she started roaming the countryside like some forlorn phantom. Now they're encroaching, and try as she might, she cannot meet any of their eyes. They've all gone dead as stone, yellow as citrines, though the young cubs are blue-eyed still. Then a wood rises up, obscuring the scene of blood I cannot bear to watch, green blanching under the patina frost. It resounds with children's laughter that rises up effervescent at first, then thickens into a blanket of sound, smothering all else. This forest holds no other sounds, our deaf forest, our soundless home, our mute cabin. In morning it is absent of the usual gossip and women's chatter. Lissy sits at the spinning wheel, no longer spinning. She rocks the bones of her child in her arms, a clattering mute bundle in striped red and white fabric. She is naked, skin and hair, too, are covered in a film like frost, eyes glazed, unearthly emerald, glassy as an insect thing. She has been gone for so long, and now that she has come back to us, no one can see her but me. To her right, our middle sister, Parette's fingers diligently, tremulously twist wool into string, calloused, blue with effort. She soaks up her tears with the hem of the peach gown that she wears over her kirtle. Her simple linen coif is askew over a head of tangled auburn curls. She intermittently stops her work to weep into her hands, their skin hardened by work and dried out by salt. I walk past them, and they do not lift their heads. They do not see me. I walk further into the forest, where I find a most peculiar plant. I am searching for the yellow whorls of the madder plant. The red root makes a dye, and a fine spirit too, though for myself I crave a richer red. One day I will wear those regal silks dyed in the grain. I dream of myself in striking hues as I contemplate the gradations of reds descending before me and blanketing the miles ahead of me. I am mesmerized by color. Is it from the blood of the hanged men of these woods? Do the roots drink up the blood from the soil and color the leaves? Do they circle between the earth and the branches, falling delicately, lightly and noiselessly this time to the soil, so what was spilled wasn't wasted? But what I find is a plant that is fungus-like and wooden-stemmed. The leaves and foliage all white too. It blossoms into a small dove, feathers ruffled and all fanned out. When I touch the bird, I realize that it is too late. It must be plucked at the right time, and I am much